3D Flower Girl Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish. Hello everyone! In today's video I'm going to be showing you how I painted this 3D flower girl. Well, she's not 3D. Her flowers and her hair are 3D. Anyways, I think this design goes really well with an encapsulated flower that I have in a different tutorial, and there'll be a link to that in the description box, so check that out. I hope you like this design, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. So I'm going to begin by just creating an overlay with a glittery pink acrylic. This isn't the color that I ended up having that really shows at the end, but since I'm using a clear nail tip, you can see it through the bottom. But I had my final color with a pigment, and so I wanted just a base so that none of that clear would show through. And so now, as I mentioned, I'm using a pigment, and I took a clear bead of acrylic and then I dipped it into this really pretty, really rich pink. And then I brushed that over the nail and then encased that with some clear acrylic just to give it strength and make sure that none of that pigment leaks in through my paint. So now I'm going to be filing it with a 180 grit file, and this is just to smooth it out and make sure there's no lumps and bumps and it's all perfect. And then afterwards I'm going to be buffing it with a 240 grit padded buffer, and this is very important to buff this because I'm going to be painting quite a bit, and the smoother the nail is at this point, the smoother your paint application is going to be and the easier it is going to be to get nice smooth lines with paint. So then, as I mentioned, I'm now going to be painting my flower girl. So I'm going to start by just doing the shape of her face, and I don't need to worry about doing towards the top of her hairline because she has bangs, and so that'll be covered up with white paint later anyway. And then her neck. So then with white, I'm going to be adding just the collar of her shirt. And then I'm going to be highlighting her face. So the areas you want to highlight are the areas that you want to appear the most prominent. So down the bridge of her nose, her brow bone, cheekbones, and her chin is really the areas that I focus on lightening. I'm not going to add any brown or anything to darken any areas. I just want to lighten a little bit just to show a little bit of three-dimensional qualities without it actually being three-dimensional. So yeah. So place your white down and then go through and blend it out with some more of that nude color and add just a little bit of pink in her cheeks. So now with white, I'm going to be painting her hair. So I'm going to start by just going over where the top of her head would be and then adding her hair coming down the sides. And I don't want her hair to be very long, so I'm just going to have it sort of curl around her face about chin length. And then once you got that white paint exactly the shape that you want it to be, go through and add a little bit more white paint just to make sure that it's still wet, and then blend in some black and just sort of brush it out to show a little bit of shading in her hair so it doesn't look so flat. And make sure you do shade around her face just because that'll add a nice face frame. And just continue blending the black into the white. So now with a very small brush and some straight up black paint, I'm just going to be going through and adding some details and some outlining. So I'm going to outline her face and not completely outline her hair, but just sort of go over one edge of each section of hair just to show just to make sure that it really stands out and is nice and crisp looking. And over the top of her head. And then for her bangs, when I outline those, I'm not going to do a straight across line. I'm going to do sort of a dashed line like that, just so that it doesn't look quite so harsh and it has a little bit more of a natural feel to it. I'm going to outline her nose and then add her eyes. So first I'm just going to paint little curved lines for her eyes and then go through and add eyelashes along those lines. Add a little bit of line for the crease for her eyelid. Add her lips and eyebrows. And so now I'm going to be filling in her lips with a little bit of pink paint. Apply a layer of gel sealer. This is really important because if you don't, your 3D flowers are going to disrupt that paint later on. So now to make my 3D flowers, I did these completely at random, so there was no rhyme or reason when I did them. So you can change that up absolutely, or you can follow the same pattern I did. For the roses, I'm going to take a bead of acrylic and I'm going to first dip it into white powder and then into purple powder and then place that down so that the purple is on the bottom, so the purple's towards her hair with the white facing up. and then just pat those out into a circle. These flowers are all very simple, very basic. I didn't want anything too crazy or too intricate. I wanted it to just kind of remain cute. So then pat those out into a circle and then add a bead in the center that's mostly purple. You can add a little bit of white if you'd like, and pat that out into another circle, and try to keep the center of your flowers thin, just so they don't appear to be pancakes. You want them to still have a little bit of shape, but they don't have to be, like I said, incredibly intricate or detailed. Just simple and cute is what I'm going for. And then the final layer is going to be mostly white. So place that down and then basically push the center of your brush into it to create that center of the flower. Around those flowers, I'm going to be just placing some rhinestones here and there. I'm using pink, purple, and clear. These are going to be for the centers of my other flowers. And so I just placed them at random along the line where I wanted her floral headband to be. And so for the first set of flowers, I'm going to be making 2 that are going to be blue. So I'm going to place 2 beads on either side of a rhinestone and then let them turn matte. This is very important that you don't try to form them right away because it's not going to work out very well. You want to let them rest for 15 seconds. You know, it depends on the acrylic product you're using and the temperature where you are, but just let them rest until they start to turn matte and they don't look so shiny and wet anymore. That's the perfect time to then start forming them because they're not going to be so liquid that they're not going to hold shape, and they're not going to be so hard that they aren't going to be formed into a shape, if that makes any sense. It does take some trial and error and some practicing with your acrylic because, like I said, all acrylic is going to be a little different and work a little different, and there's 1,000,003 factors that go into this, so just play around with it and see what works best for you. But I think the rule of thumb is just to wait until they start to turn matte, and then you can test them to see if they're ready to be formed. And so to form them, just press your brush down the center of the flower and sort of widen it up a little bit, and then you should be good to go. And then for the last 2 flowers, I'm going to be using a dark green, and the green that I'm using is a little bit sheer, which is kind of nice because a couple of these petals go over her face, and it didn't really disrupt any of her facial features because this is a sheer kind of green acrylic, and so you could still see everything, and it worked out quite well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I would really love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!